The bite. The white lights of the alien arrival center buzzed quietly as Jake Carter stepped inside. He looked around, hands in his pockets, not sure what to expect. The room smelled like clean metal and new machines. It had been 3 years since Earth joined the Galactic Council. Aliens weren't new anymore. They lived among humans, worked with them, even went to school with them. But this was different. This was the first time humans were allowed to participate in the bonding program. Jake had signed up for one reason: money. He needed credits, and fast. "Name?" asked a robotic voice from the desk. "Jake Carter," he replied, trying to sound confident. The robot scanned his ID, beeped, and pointed toward a door marked Test Room 4. Inside the room, it was quiet. A large glass window separated the observers from the subjects. Jake saw her sitting there already, the alien girl. She looked no older than 17 in human years, small and thin, with pale, silver-blue skin. Her eyes were too big for her face, glowing softly like moonlight. She had no hair, only thin, glowing lines across her head like circuitry. Jake sat across from her at the table. No one said anything. The translator device on the table lit up, but she didn't speak. Jake cleared his throat. "Hi, I'm Jake." She just looked at him, silent, unblinking. The test began. They were given simple tasks: pass a ball back and forth, draw symbols, answer yes-no questions. It was boring. Jake started to relax, even smiled once when she mimicked his face. After 30 minutes, the computer assigned a trust game. Jake was told to close his eyes, hold out his hand, and wait. He did it, half laughing. "Okay, mystery girl, don't stab me." He felt her touch first, soft, cold fingers. Then sharp pain. Jake gasped, pulling his hand back. He opened his eyes and saw blood. She had bitten him, right at the base of his thumb. "Ouch," he said, more surprised than angry. "What was that for?" She stared at him with glowing eyes, her mouth slightly open, a trace of red on her lips. Then she whispered something in her language, too quiet for the translator to catch. The observers behind the glass didn't react. But Jake didn't know. At the exact moment she bit him, the cameras glitched. For 10 full seconds, no footage was recorded. The system restarted automatically, but no one spoke of the blackout. Jake shook his hand, still confused. Was that a custom? A greeting? The alien girl just sat still now, as if waiting. Then, slowly she smiled. That night, Jake cleaned the bite and forgot about it. He told himself it was just a weird alien thing, nothing serious. But when he woke up the next morning, something was wrong. Very wrong. A strange mark had appeared on his hand, right where she bit him. It looked like a glowing tattoo, shifting gently under his skin. He touched it, and it felt warm, not painful but alive. His heart raced. Was it an infection? He grabbed his shirt and rushed to the mirror. He looked the same, except for the mark. Jake pulled on a glove and went to the lab. He wasn't ready to tell the doctors, not yet. He found the alien girl waiting in the common area, sitting alone, watching everyone. When she saw him, she stood up and walked straight to him. "You came," she said softly. Jake blinked. "Wait, you can speak English?" "Now I can," she answered. "The bond helps." Jake didn't understand. What bond? She didn't reply, just looked at his hand. He pulled the glove tighter, trying to hide the mark. "I didn't agree to anything," he said, keeping his voice low. "You laughed when I bit you," she said. "That means yes." Jake stared at her, unsure if she was serious. "Where I come from," she added, "the bite is a sacred ritual. You are mine now." Before Jake could say anything else, one of the doctors called his name. "Mr. Carter, we need you for your next scan." Jake turned back to the girl, but she was already walking away. She didn't say goodbye. As Jake followed the doctor, the words echoed in his mind. "You're mine now." He didn't know that this bite had started something powerful, something ancient. And somewhere deep in the facility, in a locked room, a red light blinked on a hidden console. A voice whispered, "Subject 7 is active." The mark that grows. Jake Carter couldn't sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw things. Flashes of a dark sky filled with strange stars. Massive machines floating over broken land. Screams in a language he didn't understand. When he finally woke up, his shirt was drenched with sweat. But something else was wrong. The mark on his hand, the place where Zyra had bitten him, had changed. It wasn't just glowing anymore. It was spreading. Thin lines now stretched from the bite mark down his wrist like roots or veins. They shimmered softly, pulsing with light. He touched it. No pain, but it was warm like it was alive. It was moving. Jake stared in the mirror, whispering to himself, "What the hell is happening to me?" He covered the mark with a long sleeve and rushed out of his room. The lab was quiet this early, but he didn't want to wait. He needed answers, and the only one who might give them was Zyra. He found her exactly where he guessed, in the same quiet corner of the common area. She was sitting cross-legged, eyes closed like she had been waiting. When she opened her eyes, Jake flinched. They weren't soft and glowing anymore. They were sharp, focused, almost alert. "You saw it," Zyra said before he could speak. "The dreams." Jake froze. He didn't answer. She stood slowly and pointed to his covered wrist. "The mark is opening," she said. "You're starting to remember." Jake looked around, whispering, "Remember what?" "I've never been to your planet." "You haven't," she agreed. "But the bond connects more than just skin. It shares memory, instinct, even pain." Jake stepped back, uneasy. "I didn't sign up for this," he said. "I was told it was a compatibility test. A few interviews, a few games." Zyra tilted her head. "In my world, the bite is sacred," she said. "It means I trust you with my life. It means we are connected." Jake wanted to laugh or scream. Instead, he pulled off his sleeve, showing her the glowing lines. "What is this?" he asked. "Is it going to kill me?" Zyra shook her head. "No," she said softly. "It's waking you up." Before Jake could respond, a voice interrupted. "Mr. Carter," said Dr. Huxley, stepping into the room with 2 guards behind him. "We need to run some tests." He looked at Zyra with a tight smile. "And we'll be speaking with your match as well." Jake didn't move. Neither did Zyra. Dr. Huxley's smile faded. "Let's not make this difficult," he said. "Trust is important in this program." Jake looked at Zyra, then back at Huxley. "Fine," he said, "but I want to know what this mark means, and why your cameras glitched during the bonding session." Dr. Huxley paused for just a second too long. Then he smiled again. "We'll explain everything soon." Inside the test room, Jake sat in a scanning chair while machines hummed around him. Zyra was in the next room, behind a glass wall, hooked up to monitors. They weren't allowed to speak, but they kept looking at each other through the glass. As the scan began, Jake felt a sudden burning heat in his arm. The mark lit up like fire. He gasped, gripping the sides of the chair. The machines around him beeped rapidly. Then, the lights in the room flickered. Zyra's eyes widened. She slammed her hands against the glass. "Stop it," she shouted. "You're hurting him." But no one moved. Dr. Huxley simply watched the readings. Fascinated, Jake's vision blurred. He saw flashes again. But this time they were real memories, not dreams. He was running through a jungle of metal trees. Something was chasing him. Something massive, with no face, only mouths. He heard a voice, Zyra's voice, inside his head. "Focus, Jake. Find your center, push it back." Suddenly, Jake sat up, screaming. His arm flared with light, and a shock wave blasted from his body. The machine sparked, a monitor exploded, and the glass between him and Zyra cracked. The room fell silent. Dr. Huxley took a step back, staring at the shattered glass. Jake was breathing hard, eyes glowing faintly like Zyra's. The guards raised their weapons. "Don't," Huxley said quietly, holding up a hand. Then he smiled again, but this time it wasn't friendly. "It's working," he whispered. "Subject 7 is awakening." Hidden truths. Silence. The kind of silence that feels like it's waiting to break. Jake sat alone in a cold observation room. His hands were shaking, not from fear, but from something else. Something deeper. His fingers wouldn't stop twitching, like they were remembering a fight he'd never had. The mark on his wrist pulsed under the table. It had grown again, not in size, but in depth. More lines, more symbols. It looked like it was building something, like it had a purpose. No one had spoken to him for hours. No doctors, no guards, not even Dr. Huxley. He was being watched. He knew it. The mirror on the wall wasn't just a mirror. It was a window. Jake stood up slowly and walked to it. He stared at his own reflection for a long time. Then he raised his hand, the marked one. "I know you're in there," he said. "Come out." No answer. But behind the mirror, someone was watching and recording. In another room, Zaira was strapped to a chair. Not roughly, but firmly. She didn't struggle. She just stared at the blinking red light on the camera above her. "You think this scares me?" she whispered in her language. "Your machines are children's toys." A door opened behind her, and Dr. Huxley entered. He carried a tablet in one hand and a calm smile on his face. He sat across from her, crossed his legs, and tapped the screen. "You bonded with him," he said. "You chose him." Zaira didn't reply. "I know you're kind," Huxley continued. "You don't bond easily. Some of you die before the connection completes." Still, she said nothing. Huxley leaned forward. But Jake survived. Not just survived. He triggered a feedback pulse strong enough to knock out our systems. That's never happened before. Zaira finally looked at him. "Because he is not like the others." Huxley's smile twitched. He stood and walked toward the screen on the wall. A file opened. Photos, charts, videos. Footage of other human test subjects. Each one paired with a member of Zaira's species. Each one showing failure. Seizures, collapse, death. "He's the first one who didn't die," Huxley said. "And that makes him important." Zaira stared at the screen, her voice quiet. "You lied to him. You told him it was a test." Huxley didn't deny it. "People don't volunteer to be weapons," he said, "but they do volunteer to be heroes." Back in his room, Jake found a way to open the wall panel behind the mirror. A weak spot in the corner, just enough to pull. He climbed through the dark maintenance crawl space, following the hum of power lines. His instincts, or maybe the bond, guided him down 2 levels, past locked doors, until he reached a secure lab. Inside were rows of stasis pods. Each pod held a person. Some were human, some were not. But all of them were connected, glowing wires running from their bodies into machines. Jake stepped closer to one pod. It held a boy, maybe 16, with a similar mark on his hand, but his face was frozen in pain, eyes shut, as if stuck in a nightmare. Suddenly, a monitor on the wall blinked. Jake turned to it, and it lit up with a video file. Project bonded. Subject 3, terminated. He clicked through the files. Subject 4, Subject 5, Subject 6, all terminated. He reached Subject 7. His name, Jake Carter. Status, unknown. Observation mode active. Jake stepped back, feeling sick. He wasn't a volunteer. He was a test. And Zaira. She was either a victim too, or a part of the plan. Then a noise behind him. Zaira stood in the doorway, eyes wide. "You found them," she said quietly. Jake turned, his voice low and sharp. "You knew." Zaira nodded. "Not all," she said, "but I felt them after we bonded. The others, their energy still lingers." Jake looked back at the pods. They were trying to make more of me. Or break me. Zaira walked beside him. "But they can't," she said, "because the bond chose you." Jake looked down at his hand. The mark burned brighter, as if responding to her words. Then the alarm blared. Red lights flashed and doors locked. Dr. Huxley's voice echoed from the speakers. "Jake, Zaira, step away from the lab," he said calmly. "You've seen more than you were supposed to. Return now, and no harm will come to you." Jake stared at the camera. "No," he said. "You don't get to decide what I am." He turned to Zaira. "We're getting out." Zaira's eyes glowed. "Together," she said, "guardian and bonded." They grabbed what they could and ran. The awakening. Dark. Silent. Underground. Jake and Zaira moved through the old access tunnels beneath the lab. Their footsteps echoed softly. Each sound felt too loud, too risky. They didn't speak. Not with words. Zaira was in front, her eyes glowing just enough to guide the way. Jake followed close, his hand resting near the blade they had stolen from the vault. A blade that only bonded protectors could lift. And somehow, he had lifted it with ease. The tunnel smelled like rust and dust. It hadn't been used in years, but Zyra seemed to know where it led. Like the path was hidden inside her blood. Jake's body still burned. His mark had spread up to his elbow now. Every few minutes it pulsed. Not painful, but powerful, like something was pressing to be released. He didn't understand what he was becoming, but he was starting to feel it. Strength, speed, awareness. Even his heartbeat had changed rhythm. They stopped in a small maintenance chamber. Zyra scanned the wall and tapped a panel. A hidden terminal opened. Old tech, not connected to the main system. Jake watched as she entered a command in her language. The screen flickered, then displayed a hologram of their location. She pointed. There, she said. That's the escape port. Just past this sector, but guarded. Jake nodded. Figures. He sat down, breathing hard. Zyra, what's happening to me? She looked at him for a long moment, then sat beside him, folding her legs. The bond is waking your core, she said. Not just memory, not just instinct. The guardian state. Jake raised an eyebrow. That sounds like a video game mode. Zyra smiled slightly. It's what my people called it, she said. If you could unlock it. But those who did saved worlds. Jake didn't feel like a world saver. He felt like a glitch in someone's science project. Still, every time she looked at him, he felt real. Not like a test subject, not like a weapon, like something more. Then the moment was broken. Clank! A door opened at the far end of the tunnel. Red light poured in. Footsteps. Fust. Amwat. Not guards. Something worse. Stay here, Jake whispered. He stood slowly, blade in hand. Zyra reached for him but stopped. You are not ready, she said. Jake looked at her. I don't think I have a choice. The first attacker came fast. Human shape, robotic speed, eyes glowing white, skin covered in metal plating. Jake barely dodged the first strike. He rolled, came up swinging. The blade hummed as it cut through armor like paper. Another one charged. Jake kicked him into the wall, the force surprising even himself. A third one shot a plasma bolt. Jake raised his arm, and the mark flared, the energy absorbed into his skin. His own eyes glowed for the first time, blue fire in his veins. Zyra stepped beside him, hands glowing with energy. You're adapting faster than I thought, she said. Jake grinned. Guess I'm a fast learner. Together, they fought, not like two strangers, but like two parts of the same machine. Each move matched, each step predicted. The bond had synced them. In 2 minutes, the tunnel was quiet again. Broken bodies sparked on the ground. Jake wiped his face, panting. His skin still buzzed from the fight. Okay, he said, I get it now. This is more than just alien magic. Zyra nodded. This is what you were built for. Back in the lab, Dr. Huxley watched the fight play out on a cracked monitor. He didn't speak, just observed. One of the guards near him spoke. Sir, should we send more? Huxley shook his head. No, he said. He's past the testing stage. He turned to a secure case and opened it. Inside was a sealed tube, glowing with green mist. He tapped in a code, and alarms began to blink. Prepare the containment unit, he said. If Carter survives the next phase, we'll use Protocol Omega. The guard hesitated, but Omega was meant for alien threats. Huxley smiled coldly. And what do you think he is now? Jake and Zyra reached the end of the tunnel. Ahead was a door, old and rusted, but unlocked. They pushed it open and stepped into a large underground hangar. Abandoned ships, dusty gear, silence. Then they heard it, a low hum. Something waking up, something big. Zyra's face went pale. They released it. She whispered. They had a backup plan. Jake raised his blade. Then let's make sure it's their last one. The escape plan. The hangar was too quiet. Dust floated like smoke in the cold air. Jake and Zyra moved slowly between rusted ships and old crates. Every sound echoed like a warning. Every step felt like it would trigger something. Zyra held out her hand, signaling him to stop. She knelt, touched the floor, and closed her eyes. Jake waited, breathing slow, watching her. Then she opened her eyes again. It's here, she whispered. Watching. Jake scanned the shadows. Nothing moved, but he felt it too, a low pressure in his chest, like something massive was hidden just out of sight. They walked deeper into the hangar, stepping carefully. Zyra pointed to an old escape shuttle in the corner, half covered in tarp, lights still blinking faintly. It still has power, she said. It can fly. Jake nodded. But we'll never reach it if whatever that thing is wakes up. Zyra said nothing. She moved toward a nearby terminal and started typing. Old galactic code filled the screen. Jake stood guard, the blade still humming in his hand. Then the hum grew louder. But it wasn't the blade. It was coming from the back of the hangar, from a sealed bay door, now glowing red. The temperature dropped. Jake's breath became visible in the air. Zyra looked up, eyes wide. They activated it. The bay doors opened with a heavy groan, and something stepped through, tall as a tank, shaped like a man, but built from metal and flesh. Its head was smooth, no mouth, no eyes, just a burning red line where a face should be. It was silent, but every step it took shook the floor. Guardian-class hybrid, Zyra said quietly. They made their own. Jake didn't wait. He stepped forward, blade ready. Get the shuttle running, he said. I'll buy you time. Zyra hesitated. This isn't like before. It was built to kill you. Jake smirked. Good, he said. I've got a few things to say to it. The machine moved fast. Too fast. It punched. Jake blocked. The impact sent him flying into a wall. He coughed, stood up, blade glowing. His mark blazed like fire. This wasn't just a fight. It was a test again. Another lab, another experiment. But this time, he wasn't a subject. He was done running. Jake charged, striking low, high, then twisting behind. The blade cut deep, sparks flew, but the machine didn't stop. It grabbed him by the throat, lifted him off the ground. His vision blurred. The mark on his arm burned hotter than ever. Then something snapped. A surge of energy exploded from his chest. The machine flew backward, crashing into a pile of crates. Jake landed on his feet, gasping. Zyra shouted from the shuttle. It's almost ready. 60 seconds. The machine stood again, slower this time. Its chest dented, systems glitching, but still coming. Jake closed his eyes. Let the bond take over. He saw flashes, Zyra's memories, ancient warriors, energy flows. He moved without thinking, like he'd trained for this all his life. One strike, then another, then a final upward cut. The blade pierced the core in the machine's chest. It froze, spasmed, then fell. Smoke rising from the crack in its armor. Jake didn't wait. He ran to the shuttle, blood on his face, eyes still glowing. Zyra pulled him inside, slammed the hatch shut. She activated the controls. Hold on, she said. Jake buckled in as the engines roared. Behind them, the hangar lit up with red alarms. Dozens of drones activated. Turrets locked on. Zyra pulled a lever. The shuttle lifted fast. A blast of energy knocked one turret offline. Another bolt grazed the hull. Shields are holding, she said. Just barely. Jake looked out the window as the facility shrank below them, then exploded. The shock wave shook the shuttle, but they kept climbing into the clouds, into silence, into freedom. They didn't speak for a long time, just sat there in the dim blue light of the cockpit. Finally, Jake turned to her. They were never going to let us go. Zyra nodded. They still won't. Jake looked at his hand. The mark now reached his shoulder. It didn't feel like a wound anymore. It felt like armor. What happens now, he asked. Zyra stared out into space. Now we find the others, she said. The ones they hid. Jake nodded slowly. Then we make them regret everything. Revenge protocol. The stars didn't twinkle in deep space. They burned silently, watching. The stolen shuttle drifted through that silence like a ghost. Inside, the lights were low, systems running on backup. Jake sat on the floor, his back against the cold metal wall. He was trying to stay calm, but the mark on his arm had reached his shoulder now, and it wouldn't stop pulsing. Every time it beat like a second heart, he felt stronger, but also less human. He didn't know what that meant yet, only that something inside him was growing, and he couldn't stop it. Across from him, Zyra sat cross-legged, eyes closed. She was humming, softly, in her own language. It wasn't music. It was control. She was focusing her energy, syncing the bond. They were connected now, deeper than blood. She could feel his pain, and he could feel her fear. Not fear of death, not fear of failure, fear of what he was becoming. The ship beeped, a proximity alert. Jake stood up fast, checked the console. Zyra joined him, her fingers already moving over controls. "It's not a ship," she said. "It's a signal, a distress beacon, old, encrypted, buried in static." Jake narrowed his eyes. "Can you decrypt it?" Zyra nodded. "I can try." The screen flickered. Then something strange happened. The beacon wasn't just sending location data. It was sending footage. Jake leaned closer as the image appeared. A holding cell. A boy inside, no older than 10. Eyes glowing faint blue, curled in the corner. He had the same mark on his arm. Jake stepped back, breath caught in his throat. "They're still doing it," he said, "even after we escaped." Zyra stared at the screen, her voice low. "They never stopped. You were just a prototype." Jake clenched his fist. "I want to find that place and burn it to the ground." Back at the main research base, deep underground on another planet, Dr. Huxley stood alone in a black chamber. Around him were 9 large tubes, each filled with green liquid. Inside each one was a body, sleeping, twitching, growing. The lights dimmed. A screen lit up on the far wall. A face appeared, not human. Gray skin, long skull, red eyes. "Report," the alien voice said. Huxley bowed slightly. "Subject 7 escaped, but he's activating faster than expected." The alien's voice crackled with static. "And the girl? She's bonded to him," Huxley said. "They're moving as one now." The alien stared and gave a slow nod. "Then it's time," he said. "Begin revenge protocol." Huxley pressed a hand to the wall. A hidden panel opened, revealing a small silver box. He opened it carefully, revealing a tiny black chip. Cold, humming alive. Back on the shuttle, Jake looked over a map of restricted zone Zyra had decrypted. He pointed to a red-marked planet. "This one," he said. "That's where the beacon's coming from." Zyra checked the readings. "It's a black site," she said. "Not on any public registry." Jake leaned closer. "They want us to think it's off-limits. But I say we go straight in." Zyra didn't argue. She only looked at his arm. The mark had started to spread across his back now. "The bond is close to stabilizing," she said. "Once it completes, you'll change." Jake stared at her. "Into what?" Zyra didn't answer. She wasn't sure. Not even her people had survived full integration. The ship changed course. They were less than 10 minutes away when everything shut down. Engines, lights, gravity. Gone. Jake floated for a second, then slammed into the wall as emergency gravity kicked in. Zyra hit the console, fingers flying. "It's not a malfunction," she said. "They're jamming us." A dark shape appeared outside the ship. Long, sharp, silent. It wasn't military. It was a hunter. Zyra's face went pale. "They sent him," she whispered. Jake stared. "Ooh." Zyra's voice dropped, barely a whisper. "The collector." The shuttle was yanked toward the dark ship like a magnet. Metal groaned, lights flickered. Inside, Jake could feel it, pressure his chest. Like the bond was being pulled. Like someone was trying to extract it. Zyra screamed, grabbing her head. Jake rushed to her. "What's happening?" She gritted her teeth. "They're trying to break the link." Jake stood, heart racing. He grabbed the blade, still humming with energy. "No," he said. "No one's taking this from me." He stepped to the center of the shuttle, closed his eyes, focused on the mark, on the bond, on her. And something answered, something ancient, something awake. The shuttle lit up from inside, glowing blue, pulsing like a heart. The hunter's ship paused, scanners confused. Then the shuttle exploded outward with energy, a wave that shattered the pull, and launched them back into open space. Zyra opened her eyes, breathing hard. Jake collapsed beside her, his skin steaming. She touched his face. "You're not human anymore," she whispered. Jake looked up at the stars. "Good," he said, "because next time I face them, I'm ending this." The last bond. Jake Carter stood over the ruins of the lab, smoke rising around him. The blade in his hand was cracked, glowing faintly. His mark had stopped pulsing. Zyra was lying in his arms, barely breathing, and the stars above were quiet. For now, 4 hours earlier, the shuttle dropped out of stealth mode above the hidden research facility. Buried beneath a dead moon, the lab was shielded, protected by ancient code and new weapons. But none of that mattered anymore. Jake wasn't here to sneak in. He was here to finish it. Zyra stood beside him, weak but focused. Her skin had dimmed, her connection fading. The bond had saved them again and again. But it came at a cost. Zyra's energy was almost gone. Jake wanted to argue, to slow down. But she shook her head. "No more time," she said. "It's now or never." They landed hard. Metal screeched as the shuttle scraped the landing deck. Jake kicked the hatch open and stepped out into enemy territory. Blades ready, eyes glowing like a storm. The first wave of drones came fast. Jake moved faster. Energy from the bond surged through him. Not wild anymore, but controlled. Every strike was precise, brutal, final. Zyra stayed behind, guiding the ship's systems, unlocking doors from a distance. Her voice in his head now, steady, clear. Left corridor. 2 hostiles. EMP trap ahead. Jake trusted her without question. They were one unit now, not bonded by chance but by choice. Dr. Huxley watched the monitors with dead eyes. Everything he'd built was coming undone. His perfect project, his living weapon. Jake was never meant to survive this far. The alien face on the screen glared at him. "You promised results," it growled. Huxley nodded. "You'll have them." He turned to the vault, unlocked it. Inside, the last prototype. Omega Seed, a living core of energy taken from Zyra's people. Twisted, corrupted, hungry. He placed it into the chamber. If he couldn't control Jake, he'd replace him. Jake reached the final chamber. Doors hissed open, and there stood Huxley, calm. Behind him, a black machine pulsing with alien energy. "You've done well, Carter," Huxley said, "but you're still just a side effect." Jake didn't answer. He stepped forward, blade raised. But the machine behind Huxley began to change. It unfolded, twisted, became something alive. The Omega Seed had bonded, not to a host, to itself. A monster of light and hate stood between Jake and justice. The fight was chaos. Omega moved like lightning. Jake countered with everything the bond had taught him. For every strike he landed, the machine regenerated. It wasn't just strong, it was designed to outlast him. Zyra's voice cut through the storm. "There's only one way. You have to complete the bond." Jake knew what that meant. Completion was permanent. It would burn away everything human in him, and take what was left of Zyra's life to stabilize it. He looked up at the ceiling, at the stars behind the blast-proof glass, then down at his hand, the mark, now fully grown, shaped like a star within a circle. The final stage. Jake slammed his blade into the ground, knelt, and closed his eyes. Zyra placed her hand over his, whispered one word. Together, the bond flared. The room shattered. Omega froze mid-attack, blinded by the sudden light. Jake stood again, transformed. His body flickered between human and something else. His eyes were pure light. The mark was now a full-body circuit. His voice echoed with power. "This ends now." One strike. Omega broke apart, core shattered, energy gone. A second strike. The lab itself began to fall apart. Huxley tried to run, but was caught in the collapse. No screams, no final words. Just silence. Back to the present. Zyra lay still in Jake's arms. Her breathing soft, fading, but peaceful. Jake looked down at her. "Stay with me," he whispered. But the bond was complete. She had given everything. Zyra opened her eyes one last time. "You are the last guardian now," she said. "Protect what we couldn't." Then she closed her eyes. The light in her skin faded. Jake sat there for a long time. The stars above watched. And somewhere in the distance, the war ended. Because one human said no. Epilogue. Months later, A new signal echoed across the stars. Not a distress call, not a weapon test. A message. "My name is Jake Carter," the voice said. "I am bonded. I'm not your soldier. I'm not your project. I am proof that you failed. And I'm not alone.